Hi, my name is Helen. I'm the first author of this work. This paper was done in collaboration with my collaborators at the University of Calgary and Simon Fraser University, Jagoda, Walny, Sonja, Thoma, Sheelagh, Carpendale, and Wesley, Willett. As designers, researchers, and programmers, we make Viz to empower the public, but are they even interested? To date, much of his work still assumes a monolithic public, with assumptions about their literacy and access that's often grounded in stereotypes rather than understandings of real, diverse individuals. To address this, we conducted an exploratory interview study with 19 Canadians from diverse ethnic, occupational, and demographic backgrounds. Our goal was to understand their lived experiences with open data and Viz, particularly in the domain of energy, a highly salient and polarizing topic for the Canadian public at the time of the study. To obtain a variety of perspectives across Canada, 3 interviewers traveled to 3 provinces to conduct the interviews in person. To decrease barriers to participation and to attract people who may not typically sign up for these kinds of studies, we recruited primarily from public spaces such as in cafes and the bulletin boards there and in public libraries. Each interview lasted around 90 minutes and was conducted in meeting rooms at the public library with 2 interviews at the participant's home. We expected that data, viz, and energy weren't topics that people often thought about, so to help guide the conversation, we used some visual card prompts about energy sources, energy personas, data types, and visualization types and tools. During the interview, participants were free to speak about the card prompts or not, and to rearrange them as they wished. And in alignment with a qualitative methodology, our intent was to seek an in-depth and reality-based understanding of the lived experiences from a small but very diverse sample of 19 individuals across Canada. Our findings revealed that one size does not fit all when it comes to targeting open data and Viz at broader audiences. In particular, we found that information receptivity, which we define as a person's transient state of willingness or openness to receive information, as a key consideration for understanding the inclusivity of data and Viz for the public. Our findings reveal 4 clusters of receptivity responses to data and Viz in the domain of energy, which we organize here in an information receptivity space. The x-axis represents receptivity to data. We use the term data to refer to primarily quantitative or numerical content in spreadsheets or other unprocessed formats. The y-axis refers to interpretations of data outside the individual. By this we mean meaning derived from data, such as a visualization, or from an external source, such as news media. It's important to note that our findings are oriented to the energy domain and do not represent participants' information receptivity in general. Let's talk about the 4 clusters in detail. We'll start in the lower right quadrant, where 4 out of our 19 participants exhibited domain-grounded responses. These participants were domain experts and professional analysts in energy production, transmission, and demand. They were highly receptive to information when they had access to the underlying data, and of the 4 clusters, these individuals were not at all receptive to external interpretations of data, including certain visualizations, preferring instead to access the dataset themselves, to interrogate it, and to draw their own conclusions. In general, they were very wary of external interpretations, and here's a quote from participant 16 who said, "It's not easy to get data in the format I want. The way dashboards are displayed is already prepared. It doesn't tell the whole story. We're forced into seeing it one way or the other." Next, we'll move to the upper right quadrant, where 2 out of our 19 participants exhibited data enthusiastic responses. Just like domain-grounded participants, these individuals were most receptive to information when it was directly and visibly grounded in data. However, they weren't energy domain experts. In some ways, these participants are the ideal audience for Viz. They were innately curious and interested in data in the energy domain and elsewhere. For example, when prompted by a card prompt of an energy visualization, P17 stated, "I'd save these online spreadsheets to my desktop to look at, maybe rearrange it, just play around with it." However, unlike those in the domain-grounded cluster who were not receptive to interpretations of data, these individuals actively sought out help with interpreting datasets in unfamiliar domains due to a lack of domain expertise. For example, P6 was somebody who used online communities to help point out potential issues in data analysis or interpretation. They said, "I'll read comments on Reddit. If someone knows the data is being used incorrectly, they'll point it out. If I see at least one negative thing about an article, I'll look at it with a much more skeptical eye." Let's move on to the upper left quadrant, where 11 of our 19 participants exhibited data cautious responses. So, unlike those in the domain grounded or data enthusiastic clusters, these individuals were not at all receptive to data. However, they were highly receptive to interpretations of data. These participants were very motivated to stay updated on new energy information, but held considerable trust concerns around data bias, data quality, and accuracy. For example, P18 stated, "I have to feel confident the source is good. I do my best, but everyone has an agenda. At this point, I don't trust anyone because I don't know who's going to give me the real answer, if there is a real answer." To cope, these participants actively sought out external interpretations. For some, this meant a trusted news source or sources. For others, this meant a trusted interpreter whom they shared values with. And in general, several of the participants in this cluster felt that current sources lacked an in-depth critical analysis. For example, P7 said, "I want the news media to do a critical analysis. As an average Canadian, you don't have the time or ability to do that research yourself, but honestly, it's almost to the point where I have to do that research myself." Finally, let's move to the lower left quadrant, where 2 out of our 19 participants exhibited information avoidant responses. These individuals were neither receptive to data or interpretations of data, including visualizations. What's interesting is that these participants cared deeply about issues of energy, climate change, and sustainability. And at the same time, and maybe because of this, they experienced significant emotional and practical barriers to consuming information in the energy domain. Consequently, they were actively, even adamantly, resistant to consuming new energy information. For example, P5 said, "I'm so little, so tiny, I can't change the world. I'm worried about climate change, but I don't need to see data. It only adds more sadness. You don't have to see data, you sense that, you feel that." Overall, our findings highlight the key role of information receptivity for understanding public experiences with open energy and Viz. I now briefly highlight 3 of the 6 categories of opportunities we identify for future research, referring you to our paper for more details. Let's start with the first one, untangling literacy, engagement, and persuasion. While previous Viz research emphasized data visualization literacy, our findings suggest that individuals' capacity for understanding and connecting with data reflects much more than just their ability to read it. And in fact, improving the ability to interpret or create visualizations with little consideration of people's receptivity or willingness to do so reflects a serious blind spot in Viz research. For example, our observations of audiences with information avoidant and data cautious responses suggest that they may be unlikely to invest the time or effort to join such data literacy initiatives. Previous Viz research has also focused on engagement, defined by Kennedy et al. As the processes of looking, reading, interpreting, and thinking that takes place when people cast their eyes on data viz and try to make sense of them. Yet implicit in this definition is a viewer's willingness to look at Viz, that is, their receptivity. And indeed, the structure of many visualization studies explicitly ask audiences to look at Viz, bypassing the potential barrier of reader receptivity. From this lens, our first research opportunity involves deepening our understanding of the interactions between data viz literacy, engagement, persuasion, and information receptivity, and how they manifest for different audiences. Let's move on to research opportunity category number 2, examining information avoidance. To date, information avoidance is a widely documented phenomenon in psychology and economics literature, but largely unacknowledged by the Viz community. In the psychology literature, it's found that people steer clear of information to avoid distressing emotions, even when it can benefit decision making. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, distress about the virus and information overload was linked with a tendency to avoid pandemic-related information, which in turn interfered with effective crisis management. In finance, investors check their portfolios frequently when markets are doing well, but not when the market is down, a phenomenon known as the ostrich effect. In the health domain, people often evade medical tests, even for serious genetic conditions or STDs. And coming back to visualization communication now, our findings highlight a deeper challenge that the presence of data and viz themselves may lead individuals to disregard or retreat from information, particularly if its implications are overwhelming or emotionally fraught. Therefore, our second research opportunity suggests to deepen our understanding of information avoidance in the context of data and visualization and examine new approaches to help mitigate or overcome these barriers. Let's move on to research opportunity category number 6, understanding evolving receptivity responses. In this work, we characterized info-receptivity not as an enduring trait of a person, but rather a situated temporary response to information within a given socio-cultural context at a given time and for a specific topic domain. Therefore, our groupings of these four responses are not meant to reflect a permanent state of somebody's receptivity to energy information. And in fact, our findings from this preliminary work already suggest a fluidity in people's receptivity, often influenced by the topic domain or life circumstances. For example, P6, data enthusiastic, was someone who carefully scrutinized energy information, but indicated that this high cognitive effort would not be possible for all information. For example, they said, sometimes I'll see a headline that resonates, but I don't feel like looking into it right now. Like, I don't have time to confirm this. I'm going to pretend I never saw it. This quote suggests that P6 may have, in other topic domains, may actually be information avoidant. Another example is P14, data cautious, who, despite a previous comfort with wrangling and analyzing data, indicated that they're not very data-driven these days. This suggests that they may have transitioned from a data enthusiastic to data cautious response at some point in their life. Therefore, another research opportunity is to build a deeper understanding of the contexts and situations in which people shift from one receptivity cluster to another and how to help facilitate those shifts. Future work should also explore receptivity in different topic domains and cross-sections of the population to further refine, modify, or expand upon these preliminary clusters. Let's talk about some takeaways from the study. Our work found that information avoidant, data cautious, data enthusiastic, and domain grounded audiences are receptive to different forms of information. Therefore, viz designed with one receptivity response in mind may not be effective for others. Our findings distinguish information receptivity, a person's transient state of willingness or openness to receive information, as complementary to but distinct from previous notions of data viz literacy and visualization engagement. We argue that a deeper consideration of information receptivity will contribute to more inclusive and accessible approaches for targeting open data and viz for a larger and more diverse range of audiences. Going forward, we believe it's important for visualization researchers to develop a better understanding of the personal, emotional, social, cultural, and socioeconomic barriers that drive public information consumption, taking into account that one size does not fit all when it comes to audiences' varying openness to new information. We'd like to gratefully thank our funding sources, the National Energy Board of Canada and the Canada Research Chairs Program. We'd also like to express our gratitude to our Viz 2021 and Viz 2023 reviewers for your invaluable input, which greatly helped to improve this work. Thank you, everyone, and see you at the conference.